It's the summer of 1977. I'm at a movie theater, much like this. I'm almost 6 years old. I'm at my first movie ever with my best friend, David Lee, and our moms. And that's when Star Wars hits the screen. That rebel blockade runner coming across over. It was such a big ship, and I was like, and then the Star Destroyer comes flying over, and it just kept coming, and it was a massive ship. Whoa. What a way to start your movie-going experience. Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope. After the movie was over, I went to Children's Palace, which used to be a toy store. It doesn't exist anymore. With my best friend David Lee, who went to the movie with me, and our moms. And while there, I got myself one freaking awesome stormtrooper. Hard. And one Darth Vader. Now, his lightsaber, I lost it, and his cape is coming out. Nobody told me I was supposed to keep them in the box and not play with them. I was 6. I thought that's what you did with these things. Evidently, you don't. You were supposed to preserve them. David was the son of a surgeon, so he ended up having 10 stormtroopers and a really amazingly cool Death Star. I, on the other hand, was a preacher's kid, and thus only had one stormtrooper. The problem is, anytime my stormtrooper got shot, pew pew, Well, he had to become the Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees of stormtroopers, which meant he would have to resurrect and get back up, back in a fight. I thought that was pretty cool, though, because it gave me a better sense of imagination, since he had to be in it all the time. Move along, move along. The reason why I share these stories is because Star Wars gave me a sense of imagination at 6 years old. It took a galaxy that was far away in a time that was long ago and made it very real for my present as a 6-year-old. I was able to use action figures. No, Dad, they're not dolls. They're right, action figures, and have a wonderful world of imagination reinventing my own Star Wars. It's all due to the visual special effects that was in that film. Our next guest is Alec Gillis, a 2-time Oscar nominee for visual effects. He's done everything from Aliens to currently working on Godzilla vs. King Kong. You've seen his work in creating creatures, from horror movies to even nice, loving family films like Tim Allen's The Santa Claus franchise, a film series that probably you guys watched growing up as kids. And he's also done creature makeup for even things such as It Chapter 1 and 2 with the Pennywise doll. Man, what an awesome thrill ride of a career. So, guys, welcome to another edition of Film Nation. This time, the art of special effects. Enjoy the show. Guys, welcome back to another class. Today, our guest is a creature creator extraordinaire. You have seen him from Aliens to The Zookeeper. He is a 2-time Oscar winner. He is a screenwriter, a director, an actor. It is Alec Gillis. Alec, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Chad. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, we are truly honored. Your resume is amazing. If we look at your IMDb page, it is an impressive series of films. And as we're going to talk about these films, could you, though, because my guys are not really familiar with the art of visual effects, can you explain exactly how you collaborate with a director in creating the vision that a director wants?
Yeah. So what we do here at my studio is practical creature and makeup effects. We also do specialty costuming. Uh, we do props and miniatures as well. We do a lot of different things, but it's in the practical world. It's not in the computer world generally, although we do design for CGI companies or for films. Like we've got Godzilla versus King Kong, the last Godzilla movie that came out. We designed, what's the guy we designed? Shoot, oh shit, not Mothra. It wasn't Mothra. It was, that guy. The guy that came, the bird guy that yeah, Rodan. Thank you very much. Anyway, you see, my IMD is so long, I can't even remember everything we've done, even the recent ones. Short-term memory loss. So the way we work is that we'll get contacted by either a director or a producer or a movie studio with a project, and hopefully the project is greenlit, because that means that it's going into production. Sometimes it's not greenlit, and we're just helping them figure out how much things might cost, and hoping that we will be in on the ground floor in a case like that. But when the movie's greenlit, then we bid the film, we read the script, we do a breakdown, we arrive at an agreed upon build list of characters, assuming that we're building things practically for the film. And the director signs off on that build list, as does the producer. And then we start applying numbers to it, which is Tom Woodruff and I, who is the co-founder, co-owner of Amalgamated Dynamics Incorporated, the company. And we'll start, spitballing numbers. What if we did it this way? What if we did it that way? And then we come up with a sort of an a la carte menu with dollar amounts attached to each individual thing. A slash on a face, all the way to a full, monster costume with an animatronic head, what have you. And then we go through the sort of bartering, negotiating with production. And they'll come back and typically say, oh my God, this is 30% more money than we want to spend. And we'll go, okay, well, let's work with you on that and figure out how to, maybe some of these things you don't need. Maybe we don't need X number of suits or X number of animatronic heads. We need fewer. And we get a sense of the comfort level of the director as well. So it isn't unlike, it's not unlike building a house, like we are both the architects and the builder. So we always say to people, well, let's say this is a car. We're going to build you a car. Is it a Maserati or is it a Volkswagen? We're going to build you a house. Is it a 50,000 square foot mansion, or is it a nice little cute bungalow? Either one can be great. We'll apply, the same effort and it's just square footage costs more. The expanse of the vision costs more, but we can do wonderful things on low budgets as well. So then we go back and forth, and then in those cases we're probably bidding against another company, and the same conversations are happening with two other companies, and we've got to sort of understand the realities of the market and the free market and capitalism and competition and all that stuff. And we can either choose to sit back with our arms crossed and sort of smugly say, no, don't they know who we are? Don't they know who we think we are? Or we can say, we better be responsive to their economic needs so that we can work. Not only keep our people busy, but to advance the craft. And it's better to work than not work. And, not every job is going to make you money. We've worked on jobs where we break even. We've tried not to lose money, but, and then sometimes we make money. And that's the way it's been going at ADI for the last 32 years.
Now, you referenced your team quite a bit, because it isn't just you and your partner. You have a whole spectrum of folks. And you've used a couple analogies, such as building a house or building a car. So I'm going to throw another analogy at you. At our school, we've had a lot of success in football. We have a lot of guys who are football fans. And the average fan, they're going to know the quarterback's name. The superstar running backs are going to be well known. The receivers and maybe even a tight end's name is going to be well known. But the offensive line, nobody knows those guys' names for the most part. But if there's no offensive line, the quarterback gets sacked, the receivers can't catch the ball. The offensive line is key. With you guys, with what you do, I'm almost seeing you guys as an offensive line in movies. We appreciate what happens in visual effects, but you know, if there's no you, Kevin Bacon is just running across a desert ground because there's no worm chasing him. Skarsgård is scary, but when he wears that makeup with it, that makes him much more impressive. Lance Henriksen is just standing there when you ripped him apart in Aliens. So with that being known, as I'm trying to say you and your team is an offensive line, what do you want my students to know to be able to appreciate the work that you guys do when they see the final product?
Well, I assume that your students at this, you know, in 2020, students who are interested in this kind of stuff are probably deeper into it than the average person. You know, I can remember when I was growing up, and you know, I worked on a movie called Jaws 3D. I made some miniature sharks for that, and my aunt, who was in Greensboro, North Carolina, I guess she was in Florida by that point, she would say, "Now, Alec, I hear you built a whale or something, or you make sets for movies." And I go, "Well, no," I'm patiently explaining it all like that. So it's always a joy for me to communicate with people such as yourself and your students who are into it. And this is a wonderful thing about the era that we live in. There's so much behind the scenes info. Like in the 80s, it was like the, you know, how'd they do it kind of shows, or movie magic or things like that we all put our VCRs, you know, set to record to get those little snippets. And you would have maybe Cinefex magazine or Cinemagic or something like that. Now there's so much information, including people like myself who have a YouTube channel, which is a good opportunity for me to plug that right now. It's Studio ADI's YouTube channel. I think we have over 350 videos up of behind the scenes, just stuff we've shot in our studio of making things. And we have over 160 million views and 250,000 subscribers. And so to me, it's a very exciting time to be doing what we've done and to have the kind of resume and history that we've done. But I guess what I would always like to communicate to people is that the work that we do is not glamorous, you know, like all that red carpet stuff, all the, you know, all the fixation on movie stars, or the very upper echelon, the above the line, which is what it's called in movies, you know, they'll actually refer to, you know, actors as talent, you know, and then there's my crew standing there looking like a bunch of shop, you know, a bunch of hardworking shop people, you know, they're like, "Oh, okay, not talent, gotcha." But that's just the terminology. That's just the way it's evolved. And if you didn't have that kind of a system as it grew from the silent days, you probably wouldn't have the fervor and the excitement over films in general. Like, it's great that people get excited over Ryan Gosling or you know, what's her name? Alicia, what's her name? Who was in, I don't know, the girl from Ex Machina. You know, people like any actor that you can think of that makes you excited is a good thing to pull you into this, so that people like my team can go to work. But it's not, you know, it's mostly what we do is we show up every day at the studio to build against impossible odds and impossible schedules. And, you know, we have less time than we want and less resources than we want. And it always works out. And we always do something memorable and great. And if you want to know who those people are, you don't have to dig too far. You know, Instagram, you know, you go on Instagram and you see tons and tons of great, phenomenal artists that you didn't know existed. People like this T-shirt I'm wearing is my shop foreman, Yuri Everson. He has a line, his own personal line of art pieces that are kind of fantastical sea creatures and you know, weird tikis and that light up and stuff like that. And he's selling them in galleries, you know. So I think that's a fantastic thing now. Social media has allowed for these people who are really deep behind the scenes, who aren't going to get interviewed like I will get interviewed for a movie that we do. It's a great way for them to have a separate income source, which is good for freelance artists, and also to get that recognition. But yes, not a super glamorous job, but a really rewarding one.
And you have been rewarded. I mean, you've twice been nominated for an Oscar. But when we look at your credentials, your list, your creatures, I mean, you've done It, you've done Predator, Jurassic World, Godzilla, as you said, Aliens, Starship Troopers, Tremors. You got an early start with Friday the 13th, Part 3. I mean, the X, was it 4?
Yeah, man. Don't get that confused. Don't step on anybody's toes. 3 was Carl Fullerton, I think.
Okay.
Tom Savini was my boss for number 4.
You've had all these great creatures. So 2 questions based on those creatures. One, are you just plagued with nightmares kind of thing? I mean, does
That's so weird that you ask that, because I had my first nightmare in a long time just last night. But my nightmares, I think it has to do with, well, I don't know. My nightmares are always like being chased, running, feeling out of shape, not being able to escape whoever the creep is that's saying. And I think it has to do with a fear of producers.
Huh.
I think that represents, or a schedule that's just always behind me, always getting closer, and I'm trying my hardest to outpace it and always feeling like I'm falling behind. But just last night, I woke up with a very bad sense of dread, and I thought, oh, I got to shake this before I do this Zoom meeting. And now you brought it up and put me right back in the pit, bottomless dark pit.
I'm happy to bring you back to the dread. So you do create amazing creatures. What is your creative process in creating these? I mean, how have you been able to come up with such memorable characters?
Boy, it's a multi-layered thing that I think is, like a lot of visual art is intuitive, and you don't necessarily, like, I'm not formally trained. I did go to UCLA Film School, but not to make monsters or anything. It wasn't a thing, really. I was an odd kid in an odd school to begin with, right? But for me, when visualizing a creature, it starts with the script. It is a little bit like acting, where you read the script, and the first read, I don't even think about how am I going to do this? What's the, I don't think about that. I try not to think about the parameters too much. I just sort of let it, it's like a viewing of a movie, let it wash over you and have its emotional impact, and all the while staying open, right? You have to just be open to any possibility. And then I'll read it again, highlight, just look at the actions of the creature. What's the action? But I'm always trying to think like what's in the background. And this is the kind of the actory part, is that, an actor will create a backstory for that character that they're going to play. And Tom and I have always been believers in this, is what is the backstory to the creature? What details can you come up with within the context of reading the script that help become anchor points for design? Like Tremors is a good example. When we were reading that, what was cool was they felt like the writers had a respect for biology, because they weren't writing anything that was just outrageous and dumb. These things weren't going through the dirt and then they come float around like a dirigible above you or anything like that. Although we could probably come up with some biological justification if we had to, because we're pros. Yeah, and then we also had to look around and say, like, well, what's been done? You got to look around and say, what's been going on with this type of creature lately? In that case, there had been the dune worms, right? Like, and that would be the obvious thing. would be just like, well, we're going to copy the dune worms. They were described as being 25 feet long and having multifaceted heads, but that's all they were described as. So we said, all right, if Dune was a soft-bodied earthworm-like thing, slow moving, ours are going to be fast, muscular, reptilian, and they're going to have a hard shell like a spear tip on the head, so that we distinguish ourselves from that Dune thing. They're not going to be slimy. They're going to be dry, and they're going to look like they could have come from the dinosaur age. That was in the script, where the characters are questioning where these things came from. Well, maybe they're prehistoric, maybe they're aliens. So we had to kind of like make a believable life form that could look like it was possibly alien, possibly ancient, possibly created by radioactivity or whatever. And then it's just like crack open the nature books. We're big believers in looking at what really exists. The thing I always say is that the craziest designs are the insects in your front lawn. There's just so much weird stuff in miniature or under the ocean or what have you. That's just a deep mine to draw from of inspiration. And so, I mean, that's the sort of creature side of it. If you're designing a character that's a thinking, talking, emoting being, you might be into a little bit of a different realm there. Okay. But most of what we've done has been nature-based. It hasn't necessarily been flights of pure fantasy, like the Del Toro stuff, in Pan's Labyrinth or Hellboy, right? Hellboy is like fantastical, supernatural, and fun, not really like rooted in reality. It's more of a subjective kind of, universe. And we haven't done a whole lot of that stuff. I'd like to do more of it, but we've been doing okay. But anyway, that's sort of like a little kind of glimpse into it. And then there's a big part of it that's just, I don't know. I don't know where inspiration comes. I was a weird kid. I don't know. I do try to keep the radar up just in normal life, when looking at things. Like if you're going out on a walk, like look closely at stuff. Don't just gab or, talk on the phone or, whatever. Look at things that are around you. Look at your surrounding. That's what an actor does too. Looks at human behavior, looks at people and character types and stuff, and is a student of life. And that's what I think, if you're a visual artist, if you're a filmmaker, you have to be a student of life,
Now, since you have talked about a couple of your creatures, what I find interesting is you do have a number of sci-fi horror works in your realm, but you also have managed to go from horror to heartwarming, such as the Zookeeper or the entire Santa Claus franchise, which I'm sure a lot of my guys watched growing up because it was, how do you go from creating such horror to, in essence, heartwarming? I mean, was there a different creative process in that, or is it the same?
No, it's not different. Not different. Tom and I always felt, when we formed our company, we always felt very strongly that we didn't want to be pigeonholed. We wanted to be like at the time, Rob Reiner was directing a lot of movies. He'd direct Misery, and then he'd go off and he'd direct, When Harry Met Sally. And it was like, wow, that guy can do anything. Or Robert Zemeckis is that type of guy too. We want to be that in creature effects. Why limit yourself? It's a smorgasbord of opportunity, and we like working, So like, as much as we love the creepy creatures or vicious looking animatronic type things, there's also a lot of fun to comedy and the cartoony stuff. When you're a kid, you just look back and go like, what did I love when I was a kid? Well, I liked the Jungle Book. Well, why? That Baloo the bear, he was a great character. So what made him a great character? What were the fun things there? And you try to bring those sensibilities, even like a movie like Jumanji with Robin Williams, the original one, which we did. Some of those childhood sensibilities crept into that. with the crocodile that he was on, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we had to build this crocodile, a couple of them. And our thought was, well, all of these animals are springing from a child's point of view. It's kind of a child's board game. So let's embrace the way kids see animals, which is always a little bit heightened maybe and a little bit more fun. So that crocodile is based on the crocodile from Peter Pan, from the Disney movie. And it has very similar proportions. It's got a kind of a narrow snout and big, jowls out here. So it's fun, but we also gave it realistic textures so that it was believable, right? So that the shapes were fun, but the textures were believable. So it felt like it could exist in the real world, but there was something a little bit more whimsical about it. And that's just drawing on childhood inspiration and all the things that we loved. This is what we're doing. For me, all I'm doing is trying to recreate for other people the sense of wonder and fun that I had when I would go watch movies. And I don't want to just repeat and just copy those original movies and do remakes and all. I want new versions of things, but I want to give the audience that same experience that I had, when I first watched the original Planet of the Apes or Son of Flubber or whatever the hell it was,
So, I mean, now that you mention these experiences that you've had that you're trying to honor and things like that, you've been in the field for a very long time. You started in 1980, and so much like technology is changing. We have more computer power on our phone than what NASA had with all of our computers combined together, sending a man to the moon in 1969. In the years of your experience, I know technology has changed your field drastically. What's something that you're very thankful for that technology has changed, but what's an art or a skill that you feel like has been lost because of technology and you miss it?
Yeah. Well, this is sort of people often ask this question in a blunt way to me, which is like, do you hate CGI? Is it putting you out of business? And it's an interesting question. And I'm gonna, and that may not be exactly what you're asking, but I'm gonna answer it that way anyway.
Okay.
When CGI came along, it was, of course, very exciting. I think I remember being on the set of Death Becomes Her in about 91, and Ken Ralston, who was the ILM visual effects supervisor on that film, showed us a little videotape of what they were doing with the T-Rex for Jurassic Park.
Okay.
And we were just blown away. And you immediately go, oh my God, there goes my career or what, right? And people were really concerned about it. When Jurassic Park came out, people were just, there were people in my business who were like, I'm getting out of this business now, or I'm switching over to digital, or I'm going to move back home, whatever it was. And Tom and I were always a little bit like, well, let's see how things shake down, right? Because yes, there was amazing stuff in that film, but there was still a lot of practical work in that film. We were very familiar with what Stan had done. We'd been to his studio, and what he had done and his team was so incredible in terms of scale and sophistication that had never been done on that scale for a movie before. That in itself was remarkable. For it to be eclipsed by the new digital technology always seemed kind of reactionary to me. Okay. And in fact, Stan, who was a master of self-promotion, was pushing back against this notion that it was only CGI by having things like, by saying things rightly so, correctly. He said, if you sit with a stopwatch, you will see that, now I might have the times wrong, but there are a total of 11 minutes of dinosaurs in it. 5 minutes are digital and 6 minutes are practical. So you're putting too much, right? Now that doesn't take into account the subjectivity, the impact of those 5 minutes versus, or anything like that. I'm not in that, not raising that debate. But I thought that's a very good way of looking at it. And what then happened was, even though digital became threat to my art, more movies were being made, started being made, that required fantastic creatures and all that, because people were excited about digital. They were excited about that technology, right? So that enabled me to come in through the side door, right? Well, you're not going to be able to afford to do everything practically. So why don't you do some of this stuff? I mean, digitally, why don't you just, do some of it? And they'd be like, can you get us out of digital shots? We would love that. Yes, we absolutely can. And Jumanji is a good example of that, right? We built a ton of practical stuff, and there was a bunch of digital as well in that. So we were riding along. Now, we weren't necessarily in the driver's seat anymore. On a project by project basis, we might have been in the back seat, because we would hear things like, well, we think this digital company should design all the creatures, and we'd say, why is that? And we go, I don't know, we're paying them $20 million, and we're only paying you guys a couple million, so we should give it to them. And we're like, we can charge you more if you want. That's it. And then we would have to then start having to repitch ourselves and re-educate producers that we as a company, Tom and I as individuals, live and breathe creatures. And that's why we are great at designing creatures. You can go to a company that does spaceships and tidal waves and also creatures and all that, but it's not a one size fits all. You have to look at it a little bit more of putting the right tool on the right job and the right people in the right places, et cetera. So that became kind of a hassle for us. But in the aggregate, I think the digital revolution meant more work for us, more opportunities. And then quite honestly, now when you look back at some of those films that we worked on, the practical work still holds up and that early digital work does not. Mortal Kombat is an example of that, with Goro, the four-armed guy. We built that guy, that big character, and that was an amazing undertaking, an amazing technological feat. But the producers were kind of like, not excited about it. What they were excited about was the character of Reptile, which was an early digital character, which at the time, it's just no slam on the people that did it, but they were just using technology that was in its infancy at the time. And now you look back at it and go, well, for whatever Goro looks like to you, for whatever, whether he looks great to you or not, he looks real. He looks like he's really there. And you can't always say that about every digital thing from that era. So I think that sort of, to me, is like what we went through a lot when you ask the question, what things are missing that you'd like to see back again. I think that we went through a period of over-reliance on digital, and now we're hitting a sort of more of an equilibrium where there are directors who are saying, I don't want that digital. I don't, I grew up with solid things that are really there on screen with the actors, and actors are interacting with them. That's what I want. And they don't always get their way because studios have reasons for pushing them away from practical effects. But I am thankful that, if you just sort of stick it out long enough, things come back around. The one thing I think in general that digital has affected negatively is editing. You used to have, there was a hand-in-hand kind of editorial style that Hitchcock would use, or action directors would use, that cut around the shortcomings of the practical effect, right? And for high impact, bam, 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 like an insert of a head exploding, or Sam Peckinpah gunshot, or what have you. And it kind of went backwards to this sort of proscenium, because we can show the creature in full body, the dinosaurs fighting. It kind of goes back to this Arthur Conan Doyle, Willis O'Brien, Lost World, 1925. Kind of like, here we are now, we're back and we're watching at a distance this stuff happen. And it's an attempt to create awe, which Jurassic Park did, when you first see the brontosaurus and you're tilting up and the music swelling. Yeah, okay, I buy that. But every shot does not have to be, and does not benefit by when the director says, I want to see it all in one shot. Okay, but you're losing high impact cutting that way. You're losing the Mad Maxy kind of feel, that George Millery sort of thing. And I think that I still see as I no longer am in awe of any visual effects shot. Subtle visual effect shots that I go like, wait a minute, right? Like there is a shot that I'm in awe of in the first It, where Pennywise comes out of the refrigerator and he's all twisted up and he unfolds. That's a beautiful combination of practical elements and total CGI elements. And I replay that and go, wow, the hell, and I know one of the VFX supervisors on that, Jimmy Udo, and he's like, dude, it was just like I had ropes and we had a stunt man in the costume and we were spinning him. And then we had a guy doing this and he was in green except for his arm. And I'm like, it's mind boggling to me. I would have to see it all laid out in order for me to really understand it. But it's a great effect. That blew me away. It's the size of a human being and it blew me away. So a gigantic overblown orgy of digital, trickery to me, I start to fall asleep, quite honestly, because it doesn't draw me in. It pushes me away from it. And that's what I think that's a downside of some of these things. But what do I know? I'm not in the demographic for those movies anymore. So.
All right, so we're going to come up to our final segment. 5 quick questions. These are just going to be rapid fire, sort of first thoughts. Just bam, first thoughts that come to your mind. First question. If you had to limit, you have done screenwriting, directing, acting, visual effects, and makeup. If you had to limit it to just one for the rest of your career, which one would it be and why?
Acting. It's so easy. It's so goddamn easy. Don't let them tell you it isn't.
Okay. 2, you've been twice nominated for an Oscar. What was it like to walk on the red carpet for those ceremonies?
Stan Winston used to say the awards are bowling trophies. So I was always amused and I'd always think, next year no one will know who the hell I am. I'll enjoy it now. It's fun. It's glitzy, but it isn't, it doesn't have deep meaning.
I'm sure you've been asked your favorite creature numerous times. I'm going to ask you slightly different. Which of your creatures are you glad that doesn't exist in real life because it'd be too scary?
Well, Pennywise is pretty freaking scary, wasn't he?
He was. Freaked me out.
Yeah, he was pretty creepy. Yeah, what would it be? Is there a natural creature that, it's tough because I love them so much, you see, and Pennywise is probably the only one that when I watched, I was like, oh God, this is scary. I'll go with Pennywise.
Okay. Speaking of things that you watch, 4th quick question. Are you, with knowing all the ins and outs of your job, are you scared when you watch movies? Can horror movies scare you anymore?
On occasion, and when they do, it's really freaking great. But it's usually because of mood and tension and atmosphere rather than a creature or whatever, so like a movie like The Witch or Hereditary. Hereditary would have been a deeply unsettling film even if there were no supernatural elements to it. So yes, I do occasionally get scared.
Last question is an invite. Now that you've been a part of our class and you've seen what we're doing, who would you invite to our class if they'd be willing to come?
All right, so I think that your students would really enjoy hearing from a director by the name of Ryan Spindell. Ryan has directed his first feature film, which my studio worked on. It's called The Mortuary Collection, and it is an anthology film that he directed 5 separate horror stories for, and it's a blast. And it's very stylistic. I keep telling him, like, you're like Robert Zemeckis, like amazing stories kind of. And he says, oh shucks. But what's great about Ryan is he's a super positive guy. He's been in the industry for a little while, so he knows. He didn't just like bam burst on the scene. He's worked around, and I think that your students will really get a kick out of hearing from him.
All right. Well, let's hope we can get Ryan involved with our class. So,
Make the introduction.
thank you. Well, Alec, I told you I'd keep you for 20 to 30 minutes, and we have gone a little bit longer. So thank you for being a part of our class.
That's because I can't keep my damn mouth shut.
So,
Here, how about some, what is that? Oh, look, there's the zookeeper gorilla.
yes.
There's a guy from Sorry to Bother You, which I recommend that you all see. Do you remember am I showing you the presidents from Point Break?
I see oh my gosh, you did the presidents from Point Break.
Yeah, the masks for Point Break. Yeah, this is from a Dwayne Johnson movie called Escape from Witch Mountain. Human likenesses, we do them. We do lots. Remember Jumanji, the little boy that cheated?
Yeah.
And then this is all our wall of maquettes. This is a Banksy. We did this for Banksy, the artist. There's a Tremors. Wait a minute, where am I? There's a Tremors worm. Sorry, I can't really see what I'm showing you. Anyway, I just wanted you to get one little glimpse at things here. And then, of course, our posters and all that. Anyway, there you go. Oh, look at this. We'll end on a predator. How about that?
Yeah. There you go.
The wolf pred from ABP. All right. Anyway.
Well, Alec, thank you so much for being a part of our class. It's been truly enlightening, and we truly appreciate it.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I love your lava lamp.
Yeah. So, need to have a lava lamp in a classroom.
And Baby Yoda watching over there.
And lots of pop heads. So.
Yeah, good. You got tchotchkes. All right. Thank you very much, Chad. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Alec. Thank you a lot. This was way cool for you to join us, and we truly appreciate you being a part of class today. Guys, for the first time, there's bonus content on one of our class discussions. After I sign off, if you want to see some extra bonus material, there's a conversation that I have with Alec in what it takes to get involved with visual practical effects. Suggestions if you're interested in doing it as a career. I encourage you to stick around and watch it. Until then, as always, fellas, remain awesome, be nice, stay safe, and I will see you soon. Enjoy the show. Again, movies are awesome.
Maybe some guys that have some artistic skill, are creative. You mentioned cinema and makeup school. If they're interested in following your footsteps and going into a field such as what you've done, what kind of suggestions do you have for them?
I get this is the question, the big question I get asked a lot, and I'm always I still mull over this because the landscape has changed so much from when I got into it, right? Like we didn't have a network I didn't know anybody else existed that liked the things that I liked, Star Wars started to change that came out right at the tail end of my high school years. But on the one hand, I had less competition, but on the other hand, no information, right, about how to do things, how to build stuff, and finding a contact of anybody that could help you was nearly impossible. So it's a different scenario. Also, I was lucky that I was in Los Angeles at a time where it was a hub of filmmaking. I was in Orange County, so I felt like a million miles away, but it was not that far. Now, due to the economics and due to tax incentives all over the world,
right,
Los Angeles is no longer a hub of feature films. There's still shops out here that build stuff. There's a handful of shops that do what we do. But things are being shot in Vancouver. They're being shot in New Zealand. They're being shot in Europe. They're all over the place. So opportunities for artists all over the world have gone up, but I think they've shrunk for people, particularly in Los Angeles, but also in the United States. Although in Atlanta, they're shooting the Walking Dead movies or shows, So the challenges, I think, for an artist to find a sustainable income source. This is boring. I get very boring because what I want to say is follow your dreams. Just, do it. Don't even question. I didn't question. I didn't think about, I just assumed I was going to be poor my entire life, but fuck it. I wanted to make monsters, So maybe that's what you have to do. I don't really know. I am loath to advise any young person to, I don't know. Elon Musk says don't have a plan B because it'll just weigh you down. I say, wait a minute, if you're a freelance artist, you need multiple income streams. So maybe your plan B is to work as a barista so that you can afford to do work on your kitchen table. I can tell you that when I look at portfolios, I'm more interested in personal projects than I am in anything you've done professionally or what have you. Of course, I'm interested in how well you work in a team. Can you take direction, all that stuff. But I want to see what you as an artist are all about, because that's where you are most unfettered and where your imagination and your time and your passion should be on full display. That's what I would say is one thing. And the other thing is become a master of social media and self-promotion. And here's another thing that I don't know. I hesitate to open my mouth on this, but the irony is that artists who speak truth to power, who want to shake things up and challenge the system, you have to be a good capitalist. You have to understand how the free market works. I think too many people, particularly artists like myself, who fell asleep during econ class or were drawing during math, didn't pay attention to a lot of the instruction on how the market works and how business majors understand it. My friends who are, hedge fund managers or whatever the hell, they have real insights into the economy. I had to start playing catch up when I started a business. I didn't, know anything about that. So you can either disengage and say capitalism sucks and it's the root of all evil, or you go well, it has lifted China and India out of poverty, so maybe there's something to it. And how do I pay my bills? I say to people check out for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and just don't engage in the free market. And look at how your life is. And then go all right, maybe I put aside some of those and actually do the old-fashioned thing, which is to work hard, save, be frugal. If you're an artist, goddamn, you got to be frugal. I'm telling you, you can't be spending money on dumb, indulgent things. You have to buy clay, you have to buy paint, you have to buy canvases, whatever it is. And then you have to figure out how to sell your artwork. You have to figure out how to create a product that people need. And they don't need it in a utilitarian sense. They need it for their mind. They need to put it on their wall or to put it on their desktop to look at it so that they're revivified, so that the crushing grind of capitalism, you're giving them some spark to their imagination and something that lifts them up. That's the importance of entertainment and art. And I feel passionately about it because for a long time, I kind of dismissed it it's just movies, it's just whatever. But if it was just that, why is it so wildly popular? Why is it that people fantasize, that projects people into fantasy worlds, and it's escapism, but apparently we need escapism. Apparently escapism is essential. So even if it's a momentary thing, ooh, that's a cool painting, or that's a cool sculpture, anyway, you have to be able to provide people with that thing that they want. Otherwise, you won't be able to pay your bills with it. And then have multiple ways of making money. Maybe they're all creative. Maybe you work at a haunted house, when that season comes up, maybe. But freelance art is not for the faint of heart. It is a difficult road. And you have to be, I don't know if you, I don't know if you can see that. Can you see my thumb?
Yeah, it looks like you get a little nicked up there.
Yeah, I got nicked up from this. This is anxiety. I'm 41 years in the business now, and I still do this over monthly bills. Some people would say, you're a sucker, man. You're falling into the game. You're playing the man's game. Yes, and I've made a lot of money doing it, and I've been poor doing it, and I've got an IMDb list, as you said. You know, I can talk about things at cocktail parties. Anyway, it's been a very rewarding career, but it's not without its every career, every activity, every career takes something from you as well as giving something to you, and you just know that you're, you know, that's what it's going to be. There is no ideal job. There's no ideal career. Maybe your passion is better left as a hobby. What's that saying about best way to ruin a good hobby is to make it a career or make it a profession? Maybe, you know, it's a very personal choice. And I made mine very early before I thought about any of it. And, you know, yes, I've been fortunate, but I've worked very hard as well. The amount of hours that you put into freelance art, I don't think people really understand it. I don't think even artists don't. I think people, I get concerned for young artists who think that that great things should come to them without having to put in 80-hour weeks. This is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And part of it is that artists are undervalued in society, and producers will say, like, I've had producers say, like, hey, can you do some designs for free for us? We're just, you know, I said, well, no, the deal is that we are professionals and you pay us. Yeah, but it would help us out a lot. I'm like, well, so what? And then they would say, well, you're going to be doing it anyway, right? I mean, you love what you do. You're going to do it anyway. You may as well do it for us. Like, no, I don't know what to say. On the other hand, I have done free work for people. If I feel like I like that person and it's the right thing to do, I don't know. This is getting very rambling. Thank God you've got 5 questions that are going to force me to answer.
Yes, they will be quick questions.
Because the other thing I wanted to offer, I know we have a time limit, but I could take you out and I could show you some things on the walls in the display room too, if you wanted to see anything.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Roll.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So to summarize, then you're saying to artists to don't be indulgent, be frugal, so others can be indulgent with your work.
Yes, they should. You should make them feel like they must indulge themselves in your work, because people think of it as, most people think of art as owning art or whatever is frivolous, or is a what do you call it, a luxury item, right? I would say it's a necessity, but it's all over the place. So, and it's being given away online and whatever. You can get your visual fix just by looking at Instagram or what have you. But you got to somehow make art that appeals to people's sense of need. I must have that in my, and if you can make them feel like they're cool for owning it, so that they'll get bragging rights when people come over, that's the best. You got to appeal to their own immature kind of self aggrandizement. I don't know.